there is anything that I want you to take away from this video, is that the path that you're walking right now, if you have degrees of uncertainty, if it's the right one, you're maybe just overthinking to a degree, what's your purpose? Where you actually going to go in your life? What's the path that you're going to choose? If there is one thing I want you to take away from this, and years of my experience, is that the path that you choose to walk now may not necessarily be the one that you stick with throughout the entire journey. For 7 years, I've been in the coaching industry now, but it wasn't always that way. In year 11 and 12, I was playing piano with the idea that I was going to be a video game music composer. Something to do with video games, music, could have even be classical pianist to actually be performing. And I remember that period of time in my life, I was also getting into fitness, and I was very obsessed with it because it was me learning how to get more in touch with my sense of confidence and visual appearance and all of these things. So whilst I was journeying this piano and music career, going to a high school dedicated for it, leaving my previous high school for this to pursue that direction, I was also getting into this fitness space, and I was tossed. I remember year 12 finishing the HSC exams, having the discussion within myself, that internal dialogue, which path am I going to take? Am I going to just ditch this music? Am I going to ditch this fitness? Like, what do I actually do? And I remember there was a pivotal point at that point in time, which was a Warren Buffett quote. And I'm going to paraphrase it. It might have even been Charlie Munger. It was one of the two. And paraphrasing, the quote was something along the lines of, choose what aligns with your values the most. Because you'll want to be doing that longer. It actually aligns with the way that you want to live. And hearing that, at the time I decided fitness was actually the road. Because I liked the idea of what fitness would give me, the lifestyle, the people, all of that. Now, at that time, I thought that was it. I thought fitness was going to be the thing for my rest of my life, all I'm going to do. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually still coach fitness, but it's not the only thing I do anymore. Along that journey, somewhere along the line, I started developing a large passion for developing oneself, so to speak. Being able to break through different versions, letting go of things holding me back per se, from being the version of myself really being me at my purest, without the tendencies to want to prove myself to people and all of these things. And that actually led me to step into other directions. Now, that aside, along this way, I started actually learning sales. So here I am, learning sales to get better within my business at the time. I become one of the best students for Bruno Bairami and end up being one of the coaches for him. Very interesting, right? Fitness was the number one thing, but then another doorway got introduced to me, which was sales. And I stepped into it as well, doing both because I could. And I started to become open-minded. You see, one of the big things that I had put on myself, one of the large expectations, was say no to everything and just do the one. And I can understand that in certain points, and again, for everyone on an individual basis, that could be great advice, which is, hey, don't get distracted, let's stay on this path. But as well, it's so nuanced, this advice, and that is where you also have to be able to decipher that yourself, which is maybe the path that you're walking right now, if you don't really align with it, if you don't truly resonate with it, and part of you doesn't really want to do this for a long period of time, maybe it's an opportunity to redesign how you're doing it, or to be open-minded to the possibility of another path. And something that I recognized was that even if I had walked certain paths in my journey that in that period of time wasn't a long-term strategy, I was still drawn to it for reasons that I wasn't aware of at the time. For example, let's say for a moment, I ditched music to go to fitness because going down the fitness route actually allowed me to explore certain insecurities of mine that I had to, in a sense, overcome. But that, let's say for a moment theoretically, that path I didn't end up walking all the way, there was still something for me to journey doing that and learn that when, let's say, another opportunity would present itself, I could easily adapt to with the new version of myself, the stripped away from the bullshit version of myself. And that's why I say you never know what it means for you, what this stage in your journey. And one of the best things that I had to learn to do was really just tune in to what seemed like the best course of action in that moment, but also not be married to the idea that it was only going to stay this way. Not to say that I wouldn't commit to things that felt right. There's a difference between being able to commit and not commit, but also to be open-minded that maybe there could be another way of doing things that would serve you extremely, extremely well. This isn't me saying to have the grass is greener mentality where you're never satisfied with something that you're doing. But it's just to open your mind to the possibility that if you have a degree of uncertainty with your path right now, to be open-minded to the idea that maybe things can change. Maybe things, if you allow it, will change for the better. So if you're feeling a degree of uncertainty, that's okay. The more that you choose to tune in and act from a place of alignment, things that, at least for the time being, feels like the right move deep down, you never know what pathways will open up for you. The same way that it was music for me, fitness, sales, then everything that I had learned going through those journeys, because in sales there's a lot of personal development to then help people with their mindset to transition from the, not just sales, but also mindset. I wouldn't have gotten to that point if I didn't walk those previous trails. And that is something that I had recognized only later on, because a lot of the time through I had a lot of resistance to letting go of certain ideas of how things had to be. Because I allowed certain beliefs that I adopted from the online world to influence my opinion on things without actually thinking through for myself that I had to be this way. But what if it doesn't? And that's something for you to question for yourself. I'm not here to tell you how things should be for you. That is not my intention. I understand everyone has different advice that they need, and maybe advice that they even have for themselves at different stages in their life. But this is just a question that I'm going to shoot out. And if it resonates with you, that's up to you to be able to have that dialogue. And if it doesn't, then great. Maybe you do have that certainty and you walk in that path. But that big idea that I had, that it had to just be one thing for the rest of their life, I had recognized after going through that journey that it doesn't necessarily. We can do things, but as we continue to step further and further and further into that development, we can start recognizing not only what we do want more of, but also what we don't want in our life. And I find actually the biggest part of the journey is removing all of the things over time as we recognize and walk these paths, removing all of the things that we actually don't want. And you'll get closer to living the life you do want. And no one can tell you what that is but you. I hope that gives you something to think about. And remember, ultimately, you have the power in your life. The moment that you hand that power away to other people, the moment you're going to feel that sense of lack of control in your life, sense of lack of responsibility. So remember, when I say control, I don't mean to control everything, even the things that are outside of our control. But there's a difference between that and giving your power away in making your own decisions in your own life. And that's extremely important. Hope this helps. See you in the next one.